Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever episode of Smells Like, a brand new series that I'm starting on the YouTubes in which we'll be exploring the Warhammer 40k lore, not through our eyes, not through our ears, but through the tantalising sense of our noses. So we're essentially making sup. That's what we're doing here, boys and girls. I know what you might be thinking, but Mr. Landshark, combining making sup and Warhammer 40k lore, that doesn't make any sense. And you know what? You're not my mum. You can't tell me what to do. Unless, of course, you are my mum, in which case, I've already started this now, Mum. You can't stop me. So the subject matter that we'll be covering today is the Primarchs. What I'll be doing is I'll be going through all the not necessarily all the backstory of the Primarchs. I'll basically be picking two parts of the Primarchs' backstories that I find interesting and that I quite like. And I'm going to combine them together with colours and smells and stuff, and we'll be talking about that. So the first thing we'll be starting off with is Lionel Johnson. So when the Primarchs were scattered by the Forces of Chaos, or at least rumouredly the Forces of Chaos, Lionel Johnson landed on the planet of Caliban. Caliban is it's basically like medieval Europe from what I understand of the lore. They've got knights, they've got big forests full of monsters and stuff. So what I'm going to do for the first sniff, if I can find it, is rosemary. Because rosemary is essentially how I imagine the medieval times would smell like, apart from without all the unpleasantries and shit and stuff. But yeah, it's just kind of like it's exactly how you would imagine like. It was used quite a lot in way back when for flavouring stuff and whatnot, so back in those days. So we'll use that as part of our search for Lionel Johnson. And one of the standing out characteristics of Lionel Johnson, again, it's kind of like going into this medieval knights kind of situation, is that it's very, very loyal. There was one situation in which Lionel Johnson was confronted by Kairos Fateweaver, the two-headed bird who can see in the future and the past, but not the present for whatever reason. And, he was doing like, you should not be loyal, you should be unloyal. And Lionel Johnson was like, nah mate, get out of my face. So I'm thinking that's quite bold, quite in your face. And nothing's quite as bold and in your face like sweet orange. Like, yeah, that's just, it's not like overpowering, it's not like lemon or anything, it's like almost like a pleasant kind of in your face kind of way, which, if anything, if you've seen what Lionel Johnson looks like these days with his handsome features, that is a pleasant in your face kind of situation going on. The second Primarch's unknown, so we don't actually have to deal with him. He can just have... He doesn't even need a sup. He doesn't even get a bath bomb of anything. He's going to be off on his own, smelling like whatever. Now, third Primarch, Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children. Now, he's a very interesting one. Definitely one of my favourite ones. I always find that the traitor Primarchs are a lot more interesting on account of that they've got this tragic kind of twist of fate about them. So, Fulgrim landed on a planet, wasn't all that great. He felt compassion for everyone, and then decided, hey, I'm going to try and make things better for everyone by pursuing improvement and self-improvement and all that good stuff. And eventually we all know that it got to his head. There was like a sword that made him go bad, and then he just went super evil, didn't he? But before he fell to chaos, that desire to find perfection is quite amicable. And I'm going to go for lavender. One, because it's purple, which is very Emperor's Children-esque kind of scent, and also because it's quite often used for calming people down when you're focusing on your studies. Yeah, I mean, that's you've probably smelled it before if you've ever gone to a kind of body shop or anything like that, or those bags you used to get when you put them in the microwave to warm them up if you've got like some pain on your arms or anything. I assume it's full of lavender or maybe even rosemary or something like that. So that's cool. And one interesting thing that I quite often don't see being brought up in lore videos is that it was Fulgrim that killed Ferrus Magnus, which is quite a big thing. And not many times in lore history have we seen Primarchs kill Primarchs. And I mean that was like the thing that sealed Fulgrim's fate. Really, it was a really big thing to happen, and especially from the perspective of the Iron Hands, losing their own Primarch is like what made them go mental and started making them replace bits of themselves with other pieces of machinery. So that's quite hardcore for a backstory for a Primarch. The fourth Primarch is Perturaba, and he was born and raised on a Greek-styled themed planet. So what I'm going to do for his backstory smell is that I'm going to have a little bit of peppermint, because peppermint, or mint in general, is kind of used in Greek food, I think, he says. With me being a British man, I'm not exactly all that familiar with culinary things, unless it's beans on toast, but... And mint is just in your face, isn't it? It's just, if something smells of mint, if something tastes of mint, you're going to be tasting it for quite some time. It's like toothpaste almost. Now, all this oil that you've seen in front of me, it's all essential oil, in the sense that it all comes naturally from natural processes and stuff. I've also got some fragrance oil over here. The problem with this is that it's Even before you even take it out of the bottle, you can smell it, and I'm not entirely sure if this is going to ruin any of the syrup. But we'll test it, and if it's rubbish, then I've got like a little box of them here, and I'll throw them away if they're no good. But I thought I may as well give it a testy test and see what happens. Now, another fun fact about Perturaba is that, well, not so much of a fun fact, but like he used cold logic and reason to decide what he was going to do. And from what I understand, based on his name, Perturaba, perturb or something, means to disturb, or I assume that's what the Latin means for it anyway. That's what Warhammer Wikipedia tells me anyway. And so, to reflect that in his personality, I don't exactly want to make a syrup that disturbs people. I want to make, if there's a disturbing factor of them, and we'll find that a lot about the trait of Primarchs, for the negative stuff, can't exactly put that into syrup, because why would you want to put it into syrup? But to represent the disturbing and cold logical characteristics of it, I want to make something that's a little bit more calming, a little bit more relaxing. So I'm going to use, I think it's chamomile. Chamomile, where are you? Chamomile, here we go. And chamomile is quite often used, I do believe, in tea to help people go to sleep. And that's got a little bit of a kick to it. That's got some spice, I would say, some almost sandalwood-esque kind of stuff, which is really sad because I don't think I've actually got sandalwood. Sandalwood is like the #1 sniff for me, but no, chamomile will do. Nice relaxing thing for old Perty there. 5th Primarch is Jagatai Khan, and I think one of the most obvious things that a lot of people point out about him is that he's got like a Mongolian kind of theme. So to represent that, what I have got is some jasmine somewhere. So jasmine's known as like an oriental kind of smell, so that's why I've kind of gone for it. And it's not exactly how I imagine jasmine would smell like, but I imagine it's because it's highly concentrated. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of these in all the syrups, but I think for these synthetic ones, I'm only going to put 1 tablespoon in just to see how that goes. But yeah, so that's his background story. And one quite common thing that people think about Jagatai Khan is that, you know, oh, he's a Mongol, he's fast, he does all this raiding stuff, but he's actually quite a philosophical, quite a how would one say, a clever individual, in the sense that when the Horus Heresy happened, he didn't just initially jump from one side to the other or make judgment straight away. He took his time, and only when he knew what was going on, then he decided to act. Which is why on Istvan 4, Istvan 3, one of the Istvans, he decided to not engage before he understood what was going on. Which I think is like something that's not often mentioned about Jagatai Khan in the lore. Now, Leman Russ, the Wild Wolf of Fenris, he's, in my opinion, kind of similar to Jagatai Khan in the way that, because of his aesthetics, he's quite often typecast as oh my goodness, he's a Norseman, and Norse is the only things he does. Which, I mean, we are going to represent here because I have got some sniff here that when I was doing some research is apparently something that the Norse would use quite often in their scents, which I do believe is Pergamon? Patchouli, that's what it's called. And where are you, patchouli? You are here. So this patchouli is quite relaxing, actually, in all fairness. And you'd think that for like something like Fenris would put lots of citrusy and spicy kind of stuff. But no, because one thing, much like Jagatai Khan, Leman Russ wasn't always just a case of, go attack the thing straight in front of me because I'm a Norseman and I'm typecast as a Viking kind of person. He had some calm moments. I mean, don't get me wrong, was he a diplomat? Absolutely not. Absolutely terrible, I would say. But like, in the battle, in the heat of the moment, he was picked his targets, he did this, he did that, and the other. So I reckon some calming patchouli will go well with his sniff. And for his second smell, what we're going to do is that we're going to add a little bit of lemon. Is there any law reasons for it? I just wanted to add lemon so I could call his syrup Lemon Russ. There's no law reason behind it. Sorry if I've cheated you out on an extra interesting fact, but hey, ha ha ha. Now, Primarch number 7, Rogel Dawn, he's got an interesting homeworld in the sense that it's unlike Jagatai Khan or Leman Russ. It's interesting in the sense that it doesn't really colour much of his characteristics or his thematics. It comes from a planet called Inuit, which, if it's a cold world, much like the northern Canadan frosts, full of Inuits. They were very clever when they were naming all these planets, I imagine. And I quite like that. It's an interesting kind of background that is not often looked at. You don't really see many kind of things like that in most fantasy things with Inuit people, which is kind of cool, I think. And while this isn't necessarily Inuit-esque, there was a time when the northern settlers went to Northern America and they were suffering from, what's it called? When you don't have oranges for a while and you start feeling really, really poorly. You lack vitamin C, scurvy, that's what it's called, scurvy. And, they were like, oh my goodness, we're having scurvy and this is bloody rubbish. But then the Native Americans came along and said, hey, don't you worry, have some pine and boil it in water and drink it. And that solved it. I know it's not quite Inuit-esque, but it's. Look, I'm working with smells here. I've got a long leash to work with here. But pine, if you ever walk through a pine forest, it basically smells exactly like that. Like it's honestly one of the most recognisable smells I think in the world. But then again, I do live in an area of the world where there are pine trees. I don't know if pine trees are so common in the world that they're everywhere, but it's something. And another thing about Rogel Dawn is that when all things were going to pot and the Horus Heresy was causing all sorts of shenanigans, Rogel Dawn was the first Lord Commander of the Imperium. So this is even before Roberto Gilliman, when he came back from, well, not from the dead, but from a really, really long sleep. But yeah, so, and that's that. I imagine, from his perspective, that's a heavy weight on his shoulders to carry around with him. Now, there is one scent that I did some research on that is meant to represent kind of like strength and loyalty and like it's like a smell that people often associate with leadership, I guess, from the research I've done on the interwebs, and that is bugger. I can't read this. Lang Lang, but with a Y on the front. I don't know if the Y is silent, but I'm not going to try and pronounce it. That's quite a regal smell, to be fair. That's quite it's a nice combination of top and middle. It's got like a light hint of citrus, but it's not overwhelming. So nice. We'll add that to Rogel Dawn's syrup. So next Primarch is Conrad Cares, and as we all know, Conrad didn't exactly have a very nice upbringing. He was very unfortunate to land on the planet of Nostrama, a planet full of crime and misfortune, and it was. I imagine it was just a really rubbish place to grow up as a kid. And for that reason, I am going to, in like a positive kind of way, like we say, for the traitor Primarchs, we're going to take some of the negative stuff and turn it into positive for certain reasons. I'm going to go for cinnamon, mainly because cinnamon always reminds me of Christmas. And I doubt that Nostrama had many kind of Christmas or kind of like family holidays anyway, but maybe all Conrad needed to not be a bad man later on was just, just a little bit of love, a little bit of care, maybe a Christmas present or something. And yeah, cinnamon, it just sniffs like Christmas, doesn't it? It doesn't matter what time of year or what time of day you're eating or sniffing it. For me anyway, it brings me back to Christmas. And then the second thing about Conrad Cares is that one of his abilities is that he's able to see into the future, or not necessarily the future, but he's able to see how things end for people, which is probably what drove him mad towards the end, because he knew how he was going to end. Which, I mean, could have been used, I suppose, for good. We all end one day, and he could have maybe looked at other people and maybe even just predicted how they were going to die, maybe try and stop. But then again, that's not so much of a power, it's more of a curse, isn't it? Because knowing how something is going to end, you probably can't change it, can you? So that may be another contributing factor as to why he went a bit mad. So we're going to go for Sage on this, mainly because Sage is, well, just for the word, really. It's quite mellow. It's quite a mellow kind of smell. But sage, like we say for the word, because sages are smart people. Sages are people who can maybe pontificate about the future, and we're going for a positive kind of looking towards the future rather than the oh no, everything's going to end kind of thing. So the next one is Sanguinius, the Primarch of the Blood Angels, which basically, long story short, he's Jesus with wings. Jesus with wings and power armor and the ability to punch people really, really hard in the face. Don't get me wrong, Jesus could have also probably punched people really hard in the face, but he didn't. For reasons, I imagine. So for that, we're going to go for frankincense, mainly because, baby Jesus got frankincense for his birthday, on his birth. It's been a while since I've read the Bible. Now, frankincense always makes me think of, do you know that smell you get when you go into either a hospital or a dentist, specifically actually a dentist, but like somewhere that's been sterilised and then they've maybe put some calming aroma on top to or maybe not even calming aroma, maybe they want to scare the patients, but they do something to the sniff over there, and frankincense always makes me think of a dentist, which probably won't work for the sanguineous theme, but it's got the word frankincense on it. We're rolling with it, baby. Now the next thing we have, which might be less than ideal, is we're going to go back to our synthetic soaps. And where are you? And we have got some rose here. Rose because, one, it's red, and you know, red is the sanguineous. But also because the Sanguinor, when he comes around, he's like a big angel/demon. Maybe it's heresy, maybe it's not, but he comes down, blood angels need some help, and occasionally pop up and smash him about, which is quite cool, I think. But yeah, that's it almost smells a bit. You know what? These synthetic soaps almost smell a bit sour. I'm not too keen. I'm not holding out much hope for them, but we shall certainly see how they go. So number 10 is Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands. So he's got an interesting story in the sense that his main catchphrase is "The flesh is weak, but deeds endure." However, most of his sons only remember the phrase "the flesh is weak," so they don't quite remember his full phrase, which I imagine is something to do with the nature of his death. You know, he died at the hands of Fulgrim. Must have been very upsetting for his sons, and so they probably only remembered the more angrier version of "the flesh is weak." We must change ourselves to become even stronger, because if we weren't weak, we would have been able to protect our father. But deeds endure, and as we all know, the acts of Ferrus Manus, the things he's done, live on forever, which isn't like a really positive message, which I find a lot in Warhammer 40k lore, that there's lots of negativity about stuff, but there is quite a lot of really good wholesome stuff in there as well. So what am I going to do for this aspect of this Primarch's backstory or personality? So we're going to add some tea tree to it. Tea tree being quite I understand it as it's a kind of thing that if you're suffering from some sort of loss, if you're suffering from some sort of little bit of trauma, certain kinds of scents and aromas that can help you deal with that through aromatherapy and stuff. And this smell's got like a kind of it's almost like, so the way smells work, I should have really started the video with this, but if you imagine there's like a pyramid of sniffs. You've got the top, which is citrus, you've got the bottom, which is base, and you've got the middle, which is heart. And obviously the citrus, or the top, shall we say, is the first thing you initially smell of something usually, and then the base is something that kind of holds everything together. The middle bit is kind of what the smell that stays with you. You get the occasional whiff of it, the occasional reminder that the smell and perfume is still there. It's kind of what lingers really, and I find that tea tree is kind of like that, or how I would describe this kind of smell. Yeah, bloody good, and it smells like a bit like a sweet tea almost. Like if you put too many sugars into your cup of tea, which I'm sure some of you do. I mean, I'm more of a chai guy myself, but you know, you do you, boo. Now, one other thing, which is a really sad. Well, it's not sad. It's more comical than anything. Ferrus Manus was given the nickname the Gorgon on account of him being quite an ugly individual. Which, oh bless him, you can't choose the way you look, can you? But even though he was considered quite ugly, I think with that whole phrase of "the flesh is weak but deeds endure," there's sweetness in there. So what I'm going to do, going back to my synthetic soaps here, is that not synthetic soaps, synthetic fragrances, is that I'm going to add some peach to it, because, you know, he might be ugly, but he's still sweet as a peach, isn't he? The 11th Primarch, also unknown, so again, he doesn't get any soap or bath bomb or anything like that, so be gone with you. Number 12 is Angron, and Angron has got one of the most interesting stories for a Primarch, I believe, in my honest personal opinion. One of those reasons is because most Primarchs have got like a piece of the Emperor, they've got a little bit of their power. One of Angron's specific abilities was that he was supposed to be able to take people's pain away from them, or take away some of their emotional stuff and make sure that they feel alright, which, at the heart of it, sounds quite good. It'd be a really, really useful ability. If he landed somewhere where people needed help in that kind of way, he could have been like a healer or something. But he didn't. He landed on a slave world, and he had to fight people and stuff, and he even had to kill his own like comrades and friends and stuff, and they put bloody nails in his head, so he basically lost that power, which is really, really bloody sad when you think about it. And so for that reason, there's maybe like a sense of betrayal, really, in the sense that he was meant to be doing some kind of things with his powers, but he got them taken away from him by people that really, when you're a kid, the adults around you should be looking after you, shouldn't they? So that he's been betrayed by the people that were meant to be looking after him. So according to sniff.com, or whatever website I was looking at, Jasmine's meant to be another thing. We used it for Jagatai Khan for the Mongol aesthetic, but Jasmine is also meant to be a thing that people can... Because again, when you've got high emotions and stuff, being calm's a good thing. Jasmine, they said it was good for betrayal. I don't know what that means. I think a lot of serpent smells and stuff, it's borderline horoscope nonsense, isn't it? You know, it's like, oh, you're a Taurus, therefore this is your flower. Oh, you're a Sagittarius, therefore you might like these stars, or bloody whatever. I don't know. Jasmine, apparently good for betrayal, so putting some Jasmine in there. And then one very obvious aspect of Angron is, well, it's the anger, it's the butcher's nails, it's the fact that he was one of the only Primarchs who was hated by his sons, and he hated them, and everything was bad, and stuff like that. So we are going to go back, much like before, with peppermint. Because even though it's quite a nice smell, and once you smell it you can't get rid of it, it attacks you, doesn't it? If you're in a room and it smells like mint, nothing else you add, or nothing else you do will get rid of that mint scent. Number 13 is Roberta Gilliman, or as everyone likes to call him, Robert Gilliman. He's an interesting one in the sense that he's another one that's kind of like typecast by memes. You know, it's like, oh my goodness, he likes his books, and he's a nerd, and he's a poster boy, and he's got plot armor and stuff. Which, fair play, maybe there is a case for it. But there are some other elements of him that's less explored. One of the things I quite like about Roberta Gilliman is that he had an idea for his Space Marines. The idea that they won't always be Space Marines. One day there will be peace in the galaxy. So he's not only teaching his soldiers how to be soldiers, but he's also teaching them how to be administrators and be custodians over whatever they conquer, so they can grow it into something new. So I am going to add some clove. One, because it's a bit of his aesthetic, which we'll go into next, but also because, in my opinion, it just smells like paper. You know when you get like a brand new book and it's got like that new book smell? I mean, not exactly like a new book, but you know, it's got that, of all like the essential oils you can get, it's probably the most like academic sort of smell, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Now, one thing as well about Roberta Gilliman is that there's quite a lot of Roman kind of themes about him. I mean, you look at, what's his name? Not Caiaphas Cain, the other one. Sicario, what's his face? He's got the Roman plumage on top. And, you know, in some of his pictures, he's got one of those Julius Caesar-esque loom headband kind of things. And yeah, it's quite Roman. So, much like how Lionel Johnson had some rosemary because of the medieval theme, we're going to have some rosemary because the Romans also used rosemary for stuff as well. Number 14 is Mortarion. And he's probably one of the reasons why I decided that when we do the traitor Primarchs, we're going to take something negative about them and then turn it into positive stuff. Because if I was to make soap for Mortarion, we know how that would end up. I would not be using essential oils, I would be using some essential fluids, which is not what we want on this Christian, family-friendly lore video here. So on the planet Barbaros, where he landed, essentially a planet full of necromancers. Lots of people raising people from the dead, using magic for nefarious reasons, which I imagine is where Mortarion got his resistance towards magic. Now, I tried as best as I could to find what kind of sniffs that people would use way back when for like embalming, or for ancient burial rituals and stuff. But I couldn't really seem to find anything substantial, anything that was actually good. Or at least nothing that kind of like jumped out at me. But one thing that I did find was Germanium, or Geranium. It's pink and it's a flower and it looks lovely. So obviously when people die, you get flowers. Necromancers, I imagine, they get lots of flowers because there's loads of dead people, and I imagine from the perspective of a necromancer, even if you're surrounded by dead people, you still want things to smell nice, so we've got Geranium, which it smells like pink. Not Pink the singer, obviously, but it's hard to describe the smell other than, you know, like how like purple drink tastes like purple. This just smells like pink, which is, well, I quite like that. That's quite nice for Mortarion. And then another interesting part about Mortarion's lore is that he was very against magic, very, very much against magic. But gradually over time, even though he had some very strict principles they held himself to, he broke his principles. I mean, we saw in the fight against Roberto Gilliman in a recent what were they called? The Dark Imperium trilogy, where they had a fight and there was some magic involved. Roberto Gilliman called him out on that. There was also another scene during the Horus Heresy in which he was fighting some sort of demon and he had to use his magic to overtake her. So it sounds like Mortarion just needed to accept himself for who he was. And even though maybe the Emperor stole his victory from stealing him away from the Necromancers, maybe didn't quite get it the way he did, and maybe was born in situations that he couldn't quite consider and help himself with. You just love yourself, Mortarion. Just get over yourself. You're fine the way you are. So much like as we said before, chamomile used to help people go to sleep and all that stuff. Just relax, man. Relax, have some chamomile, and it'll all be good. Now, Magnus the Red, did he do anything wrong? Maybe, yes, no, I don't know. But what I do know is that his background is very, very Middle Eastern themed, kind of. His home planet and his kind of. You look at the Thousand Suns helmets and stuff. That's very Pharaoh-ish, if that's even a word. So one thing, every time I think of Egypt, I think of the Nile, and when I think of the Nile, I think of wheat, because obviously, way back when in the Roman days, Egypt was the breadbasket of the Mediterranean, and so we're gonna throw some wheat in there, just because of the Middle Eastern focus that the Thousand Suns tend to have with their aesthetics. But obviously the biggest thing about Magnus the Red is his magic. Now, the magic it was kind of like a double-edged sword for him, wasn't it? Because, don't get me wrong, like the magic was really useful, but then it caused him to maybe be useful in the wrong ways. I mean, he got a message, didn't he? And he was like, oh, maybe I'll go up to Father and tell him things were going wrong. And, well, didn't quite end up so well for everyone, did it? But you know what? He was trying, man. He was absolutely trying. But to represent him trying and to represent this magical aspect of him, we are going to use some bergamot, which is quite a zesty, quite like a, dare I say, almost spicy kind of flavour. Well, not flavour, but sniff. Never taste your essential oils unless you really want to. But yeah, from what I understand, bergamot is occasionally used for like Wiccan stuff. I'm not a Wiccan myself. I've never owned a Wicca basket or anything like that. But apparently Wiccans use it occasionally, so that's magic. So there you go. So number 16, the big bad boy himself, Horus Lupercal. And again, I think he's another one that's quite often misunderstood in the sense that, everyone thinks, oh, it's called Horus Heresy. He was obviously the first person to turn traitor. He wasn't. It was the other guy, which we'll talk about later. But even then, it wasn't necessarily a conscious choice. It was the fact that he was wounded in an engagement, and then it was taken to that cave, and then demons were put inside him. I'm not a technical man, I don't understand the words, but something like that happened. So if he never got injured or anything like that, he might have just stayed loyal to the Emperor. So in regards to the healing aspect of it, if we took that negative and turned it into a positive, that would then we could add some eucalyptus into it. Eucalyptus, obviously, it's well known for its healing properties. You get it in aloe vera, I think. Is it aloe vera? You get something in some things, and it apparently helps with skin. And again, like the bags that you warm up in your microwave that I mentioned earlier on, it's got that quite a lot like a smell like that, a combination of eucalyptus and rosemary. But we're not going to put rosemary in it because I've used rosemary too much so far. What I will do is that I will highlight another aspect of him, which is he was quite well liked by everyone. And if he wasn't liked by one of the Primarchs, he was well respected at the very least, which is why I think he was, or I assume that is why the Emperor chose him to be War Master. So much like before when we used Lang or Yilang, in regards to Rogel Dawn and his responsibilities, we're going to use Lang, however one can say that. God, honestly, why would you put those two letters together? It's impossible to read. But we're going to put it in for Horus Lupercal, purely because he was a family man. Well, not necessarily a family man. He was there for his brothers, and being the first War Master, again, a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight to put on your shoulders. Which neatly brings us along to the next Primarch, which is Lorgar, which is actually where the Horus Heresy all went wrong. And not necessarily even with Lorgar, it was Cor Faris and Erebus. No, there were two dudes. They were being a bit cheeky, and then they went up to Lorgar and said, "Oi, start worshipping the gods. Because to be fair, on his home planet when he was raised, there was Chaos God stuff going on there, wasn't there, really? So he was brought with this initial need to worship something. Emperor came along, and he even fought a holy war against the... In fact, he was probably the first person to fight up against Chaos in that regard, in the sense that they thought, oh no, the Emperor's coming. He didn't know it was the Emperor, but he knew some big golden shiny man was going to come and save them all. So he wasn't a terrible person, but he had an inner need to worship, or at least to look up to something high above him. Which is why, like, when the Emperor gave him his sons, they were initially called the Imperial Heralds, which is almost like, hey, it's similar to being a religious proselytizer and going out and spreading the word, but you're spreading the word of the Imperium, which is, there's no word. Just chill out. Just don't bother going to church. Spend an extra 10 hours in bed or something on a Sunday, or whatever it is people do when they have free time. So in regards to this need for belief, we're going to do something similar to what we did with Mortarion. We had Geranium, whatever I said that was. We have some Geranium in there, because it's not so much about acceptance, it's about belief. It's like, yeah, okay, you need to believe in something. Why don't you believe in yourself? Wouldn't that be nice? And obviously, much like Sanguinius, frankincense, because religion. And at number 18, we have got Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders, who is arguably one of the best characters in If the Emperor Had Text-to-Speech. I mean, I missed that program. You know, it was genuinely one of the best things I've ever seen on YouTube ever, or even bloody anything ever, really. And I just want it to come back. I know it won't, but
it would be but a single poop on its nugget.
This planet's a harsh one. The planet of Nocturne, it's full of fire and dragons and stuff. Can't be that pleasant. So you'd expect Vulcan to have grown up to be quite a serious, quite a aggressive, maybe a negative kind of person. But he didn't. He's just lovely. When you come to think about it. If you ignore the meme, if you ignore Eldar children, but there is a reason for that, which I'll get to in a moment. But for the reasons why he is nice and chill, considering that he's on a fiery planet, we're going to go for some tangerine. Tangerine, if you've ever eaten tangerine before in your life, it smells like tangerines. I don't know what else to say about that sniff. But regarding the murderizing and disliking of Eldar, from what I understand about the lore, in his home planet, way back when, it was invaded by Dark Eldar raiders quite a lot, and lots of people were kidnapped. Until one day Vulcan said, you know what, I've had enough of this, went outside at night time with 2 hammers, and beat a bunch of them up. I think he killed about 100 of them, and he inspired other people to come out and defend themselves as well. So there's like a case of freedom, and, we're not going to stand up for this anymore. We're going to take all this negative stuff around us, and we're going to shape it and use it to create something really, really good. And I think Vulcan has one of my favourite lore moments in all of the Horus Heresy, which is him and Magnus the Red. Magnus is coming up to the Imperial throne, and he's all like, I'm going to do something cheeky to my father, or to the throne, or bloody whatever. And then Vulcan just basically comes out and says, hey, do you mind not doing that? Could you just stop? And Magnus is saying, oh no, I've got to do it. I'm going against the Emperor, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. To which Vulcan says, hey, you know what, just come back. We forgive you. Doesn't matter what you've done, doesn't matter who you've been a miscreant to, just come back home. We forgive you. Which I think is just really, it's in the middle of the Siege of Terror as well, when everything's going to shit, and there's still some brotherly love. Which I just think is cool, isn't it? So in that regard, clean starts, clean beginnings, all that stuff. There's no smell more cleaner than lemon, because no matter what cleaning product you use, there's always probably going to be one variant of it that has the lemon scent in it. And again, if you've ever cleaned your kitchen, which I do maybe once every fortnight, but whenever you do, and you finish everything, it all smells like lemon. Unless you're one of those people that like the smell of bleach, which, just a minor diatribe here, I used to work in a care home where everyone said, oh my goodness, we need to clean everything with bleach, because I just love the smell of bleach, because things are clean when you've used bleach. Hate it. Just hate the smell of bleach. It's the worst thing ever. Makes me think of swimming pools. You know what swimming pools are filled with? Kids. Awful. Anyway. Now moving on to Corvus Corax, which is another really good character from If the Emperor Had Text-to-Speech, which we will never get again because Games Workshop has stolen fun from us. But he's got an interesting aesthetic in the sense that he's like a violent Edgar Allan Poe. And his story is interesting because it kind of ends the way it started. On his home planet, he had to go about sneaking about and beating people up and stuff, and it's ended with him chasing after Lorgar, finding a way to sneak up on him and beat him up. So it's kind of come full circle, really. And he's got the patient hunter aspect to him, which is kind of similar to what I said about the Wolfman. What's he called? Lehman Russ, in the sense that, yeah, okay, Lehman's seen as a bit of a hothead, but he can also be quite calm in the moment of combat and pick out his right moments. That's the whole point of Corvus Corax, I guess. It's that his main thing is stealthing around and being a bit cheeky in the shadows. So, well, we'll go for some patchouli like we did before. And then, in a similar note, he's not only is he calm and patient when he's on the hunt, but hunting is one of the things I think that has defined a lot of his characteristics, especially in the later years when he realised what needed to be done about those cheeky traitor Primarchs that managed to survive the Siege of Terror. So we're going to go for Pine, mainly because Pine... Where are you, Pine? Ah, there you are. But yeah, we're also going to go for some Pine as well, just because hunters always make me think of being in the forest, because that's what hunters do. So yeah, we'll go for some Pine. And the last ones are Alfaris and Omegon, or however one wants to pronounce that second name. I have tried to read their lore. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. Something about I am Alfaris. Maybe the Serp is Alfaris, who knows? So to represent his unknowable kind of situation, in the Serp making process, I'm going to jumble all these up and I'm going to pick 2 at random. I'm also going to pick... The colours will match the Alpha Legion, but I'm going to pick 2 at random and then we're going to see if we can sniff it later on. So that's all the Primarchs essentially. Let's get down to making some Serp. Okay, so now what we're going to do is going to be super simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this melt and pour soap. I'm going to melt it. I'm going to pour it into here. And then I'm going to basically melt it all down in the microwave, stick it in the bowls, add the colours, add the correct scents, mix it all together in these, where have I put you? You're over here, into little soap molds like this. Have a look what's going on. Fun fact, if you're a person who wants to get into soap making, there's 2 kind of ways to do it. I'm doing it through the melt and pour method. Someone's already made a base for the soap, and I'm basically going to melt it, which is where it comes from. But there is also another way to do it. You can do something with like sodium hydroxide or something. Sounded very scary. One day for the future episodes I will be doing that process, but for the first time I've ever making soap, because I've never made soap before, you see. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll just do it like this, so I don't get chemical burns and stuff. But first things first, we need to take out the soap from the box. I'll tell you what, I shall make some space for us here. Pardon the noise. Make some more room. I've also got a chopping board. And what we're going to do is that we're simply just going to... like that, easy peasy, definitely no editing there. And obviously, if we just stick this in the microwave, it's going to be too big. So cut it down to size. So just give us 2 minutes. And one more just for good measure. Right. Okay, so here we are. We've got all our soap cut up. We'll stick it in this bowl over here. And then once it's all melted, we can then start putting our ingredients in. So what I'm thinking of doing for my own sanity's sake, so I don't go mental through just purely making soap for the next 4 or 5 hours, I'm going to cut it into a montage. We'll put some music in the background, might put some images on the screen. Who knows what I'm going to do. But yes, I'll see you on the other side. Well then, boys and girls, that was quite the emotional rollercoaster. I assumed when doing my research, and bearing in mind that I did basically no research whatsoever, that syrup would be quite easy to make. All you do is just melt the syrup, put shit in it, mix it together, and then put it in a thing. And no, it turns out that this stuff, you melt it, and then it dries up pretty quickly. Well, quickly enough so that you can't pour it and stuff, so it hasn't ended up looking nearly as good as I thought it would. But we'll see. On a side note, by the by, while I was waiting for these things to dry, because obviously they're dry enough so that you can't pour them, but it takes a long time for them to actually dry into like a solid kind of mass all the way through, I decided to watch the X-Men film Logan, and God, that was an emotional film. So, God blimey, that was so I've yeah, just a side note there. Anyway, right, here's our first batch of syrup now. So here is the idea. Here was the plan initially, right? So you might have seen in the montage, I had 2 bowls filled with different colours. So I'm going to put one smell in one and the other smell in the other, 2 different colours, sit them on top of each other and make a solid square bar of syrup. That was difficult, one, because you had to wash the bowls out every time you used them, which was, believe it or not, washing hard syrup out of a bowl, out of glass bowls specifically, really, really difficult. But anyway, here's who was the first one. I've been reading through notes all the way through this. I can't bother to continuously look over things. But here is my first one, Lionel Johnson, and bless. Like the idea's there, isn't it? In fact, if I can, I'll take some pictures of these later maybe. But it's smooth at the bottom, and the syrup has. It was meant to be a straight line, but it just ended up looking like I've stuck some sort of cauliflower on top. But I mean, still smells good. You've got the sweet orange. You've got the what was it? What did I put down there? Rosemary. You've got working together in tandem. The rosemary being like a solid base. The sweet orange being like a nice heavy on the top kind of thing. So yep, well done, Lionel Johnson. I'll stick you there. The next one was Fulgrim. Now Fulgrim, I decided at this point, I was like, well, doing this is going to take so much time and effort, and also it just doesn't look nice at the end of it. So I'm just going to stick them all in one. So this one should, in theory, look a little bit better. Ho-ho, look at that. If I just shave off the top there, it's a solid block of sniff. And yeah, this one's a much sweeter one. Lavender and apple combined. And to be honest, I can't remember if I mentioned, it's been ages since I've recorded the first bit of this video, but it's it had not the essential oils, it was the fragrance stuff. So it's not natural, but it hasn't overpowered it. You still smell both, and it smells quite good. So well done to that. Haha. Now, this was when I learnt that the syrup, well, the melt and fold or whatever, melt and pour syrup. Oh, hold on. If you haven't noticed already, I've put the lapel lavalier microphone on my beard, because if I put it on my chair or anything, the beard rustles on it. So anyway, minor detail there. Now here is Perturaba's. It's take a good hard look at that. It is dog shit, basically. I poured this when the syrup was just about drying. But I thought, hey, it's all right. It'll be fine. What'll happen is it'll sit together, it'll heat itself up, and it'll all even out. No, I tell you what, this is also. In fact, this hasn't even dried properly. So, Perturaba, I'm really sorry, but mint and chamomile. Actually, that's not a brilliant smell combination. I don't know whether that's because we've fucked this one up, or whether it's just because of the mix of smells. But that is not ideal, sadly. In fact, let me get something to clean my hands with. There we go, it's like a teenage boy's bedroom now, with the towels. Okay, so, I'm sorry, fans of Perturaba, but you've been shat out on that one, I'm afraid. He wouldn't be proud of it. Next one's Jagatai Khan. Made him go white for this one. And he was a combination... And look, and when it goes right, the syrup is... I don't know if you can hear it, but it's a solid doofer. And this one was jasmine and lemongrass. Ooh, that one is... Oh, my goodness. That one's like... Because jasmine and lemongrass, they're both quite... Well, I mean, jasmine's a little bit in the middle of the smell pyramid that we talked about earlier on. But the combo between the two... That smells like lemon sherbets. They are a bit wet in the hands, though. But then again, I suppose that's what you want syrup to be, don't you? You don't want it to be a solid mass of stuff. Okay, so well done, Jagatai Khan. We have now got Lehman Russ. Now, what I learned was that with Fulgrim, his was meant to be a light purple. I put too much stuff in it. But I didn't realise that it would mean that those kinds of colours would go that dark. So Lehman Russ was meant to be a white-blue kind of thing. But it wasn't. It went to a dark blue, almost like a sea blue when you hold it up to the light almost. But hey-ho, we'll give him a sniff, sorry. Patchouli's there. Can't smell the lemon there. Don't know if I put enough lemon in there. But could definitely smell the patchouli. Which is, it's alright, it's alright. It's a soap that would do the old wolf proud. Now moving on to who did I have next? I had Rogel Dawn. So this was meant to be yellow, but it came out a bit more orangey. But that's fine, we forgive for that. And yeah, very similar to Lehman Russ. This was a combination of pine and Yang Lang, or whatever it's called, Yang Nam style. And you can smell the Lang, but not so much the pine. Pine's quite a subtle scent, to be fair, so you don't really, to be honest, I don't know if I'd combine pine and stuff together again. So there we go. So that's the first 6 of our Primarchs done. Let me move all these guys over here. In fact, let me keep them in order. Alright then, so moving on to Conrad Cares, we can see that it's got a little bit, the shape's getting a bit more consistent, maybe not so much at the top, but it's yeah, that's you can smell the cinnamon in there. Got a bit of sage. But nothing too impressive. I think it's more of a calming kind of aroma. It's nothing too fabulous. Not quite like Rogel Dawn. Yeah, no, it's a lot calmer is Conrad Cares, which is quite cool. Moving on to Sanguinius, we have got a wonderful, not sure what's happening here, but it's very similar. I think all the shapes from this pot onwards are a little bit similar, in all honesty. But this one, ooh, that one's a very, very strong one. A combination of frankincense and the rose we use, which again, the rose is not a essential oil, it's a fragrance. But that's a weird one. That's almost like a King de Buena. It's almost like a biscuity kind of. Yeah, smells like biscuits. I don't know why, but it does. Moving on to Ferrous Menace. This bad boy over here, big chunky block. Got a little bit of a slurp going on down there. But what was yours was a combination of tea tree and Canberra, the pink flower that I can't pronounce. That one's really nice. That one's like a how would even one describe that one? That one's just nice. I think I might use this one, to be honest. This is and it's got a nice little marbling at the bottom. Not intentional, I imagine, but it was certainly got some discrepancies in the colours. Some bits are darker and some bits are whiter. Got almost like sea blue kind of thing going on in there. Not sure why I picked blue. I just couldn't think of a colour that wasn't grey, because I already had grey for Perturaba, but I mean his grey didn't quite turn out as well. It looks more like a brain at this point now. Very disappointing. Moving on to Angron. Angron was jasmine and peppermint. Meant to be quite a sharp smelling one, this. Oh god, yeah, that's an interesting scent. I'm thinking, you know when you buy new shoes and the soles of the shoes smell like new shoes? That's what it does. Oh, and it's got like a little bit of an eye at the bottom of it. Don't know if you can quite see in the camera. Again, picture will be up, but an angry eye of some description. So actually, this is currently the most aesthetically pleasing one, just by pure accident. Well done. Good job, everyone. Moving on to the next one, we have got Roberto Gilliman. If I can get him out. Roberto Gilliman, you are a combination of rosemary and clove. Ah, that's just generic soap, isn't it? Yeah, I think I've just made it kind of works for Roberto, though, doesn't it? Generic, normal, not very special soap. Yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll take that. Moving on to, I do believe you are Magnus the Red. You've kind of came out in a pink. So, again, in fact, this is even see-through as well. This was not meant to be. Like I said, I put a little bit of a dollop of red in there, and it's gone pink. So, that's cool. And again, more generic stuff. I don't think bergamot or wheat are a particularly strong combination. In all honesty, bergamot isn't. Yeah, it's those flavors. I said we're not eating it. Those scents aren't really exactly working together all that well, and one's really standing on top of the other. So, sorry, Magnus, you haven't quite worked out there. Let me reform these. So moving on to the final batch. So I've missed out one person. It was Mortarion because I got my numbers mixed up. We'll go Mortarion first, which ironically, Mortarion has got a nice little gas cloud thing going on here, which is very lovely to see. But then also when you give him a whiff, yeah, that one is pretty good. This one is a combination of chamomile and geranium. So both not too citrusy or spicy, but they work together just as nice. That is, you know what? That is probably the nicest. Weirdly enough, Mortarion Soaps appears to be the nicest smelling one so far. So well done, Mortarion. Who's next? We've got Horace Lupercal. Now, I tried something fancy with this. I wanted to see if it would work. So, in the making of it, I thought, oh, well, if I do it all white and then put a little bit of black around, at the bottom, it will also make these little spots. You know, the white representing truth and light and purity, and then the blackness representing the corruption of his soul. And then it just pull at the bottom. Of course it would. But I suppose it's kind of... Yeah. Soap making's hard, boys and girls. I didn't expect it to be this hard, in all honesty. But you smell rather fragrant. You are a combination of bergamot and... No, you're not. So you are a combination of liang liang and eucalyptus. Eucalyptus sitting nicely at the bottom. Lang sitting somewhere in the middle. That's not too bad. It looks much nicer this way than this way, but... what are you going to do? Moving on to Lorgar. Right, you are... Lorgar, you are the middle one here. And you are... Ooh! You've got a... Hold on, let me wash my hands. I'm getting bits of Horace all over Lorgar, which I suppose makes sense. Yeah, that one's generic. Nothing too special. What was that? What was your combination of frankincense and geranium? So it's kind of similar to Mortarion, I guess. Frankincense not really picking up in this general area, so it's alright. Lorgar wasn't terrible. It's not the worst one so far. It's not exactly Angron levels of smelling like fresh feet. Moving on to Vulcan. Vulcan had a nice little... Kind of like Mortarion, there's maybe a little... Ooh, there's like a minor swirl going on in there, which is nice. Although it has got lots of these flaky bits at the top, which I don't appreciate, but hey ho, such is the way of making soap. You're a combination of tangerine and lemon. None of that's coming out in this. That's actually quite a disappointment. I was expecting it to give you a real big whoof right in the nose, but no, nothing's going on there. That's not doing it for me. Damn it, Vulcan! Okay, we've got Chorus Corvax. Now this actually is quite a nice... it's got a nice shade of grey here. And on the back pattern, it's got a little bit warps there. We're combining black and white together. I put one dot of black in and 2 dots of white to see if it would all mix together. And it's got a nice grey in general, but again, it's not quite came out the way I was hoping for. But patchouli and pine. You still smell the pine in this one, so patchouli and pine are a good combination. Patchouli giving a nice background, pine just coming out over the top on that one. So cool. And last one, Alfaris. I genuinely don't know what I put in this. I just picked some stuff at random, shook them all in, and then I don't even know. So, and much like the others, we've got a nice little black kind of, or should I say dark blue oozing over into the lighter blue. So you are... who else had what I think they have? Lorgar, you had Lorgar, you are... Yeah, no, I'd say whatever. It must either be frankincense or geranium or however one pronounces that. But that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. So the standouts for this definitely have to be, well, the best one I would say is Mortarion, which is absolutely hilarious because it just smells really, really good. And like I say, the actual cloud gas effect going on there is entirely unintentional, but it's a thing. Worst one, however, is poor old Perturaba. I mean, look at him. He's crumbling at the very foundations of himself. The colouring hasn't even gone into the syrup all that well. Like I say, I thought this was going to be really easy. It's not easy. I think doing it with melt and pour is probably not the way forward for something like this. I might have to actually do this properly. But hey, we live and we learn. I'll just keep on cracking on and see what we can do next time. I always find it easier to learn by doing things rather than by reading things. I've now learned exactly how to prepare the workstation, how to transition between different types of syrups. I also think it would have been a lot easier if I just made one syrup rather than 20 in one go. But hey, I'm definitely going to try and do this a little bit better because, I mean, Lionel Johnson's, it's a good idea. Just maybe if I did if I did this type last, I think I would have got better rather than, well, I definitely would have done it better than I did it this time. But I'm gonna have a bath with all of these. I'm gonna have a bath with the Primarchs. It's gonna be beautiful. But not you, Perturaba. You're gone from my life. Mortarion is the boy for me. So yeah, if you like this kind of content, this weird and wacky syrup making adventure we've been on, let me know what kind of lore factions we need to do next. Shall we do a syrup for every Imperial Guard faction? Or shall we do something Eldari? Or shall we see what orc clans we can smell like? You let me know in the comments and we'll do some cool stuff. If you want to keep up with us on my syrup making journeys and stuff, the Instagram is the place to be. Instagram.com/Stevie George Publishing. There's a Patreon. If you like Dawn of War, Dawn of War's a game. People used to play it way back when. You can go over to the Patreon. All the links are by the bio in the description. You can join us for one extra Dawn of War game a week. And that is all I really have to say. Cheers!